Alright, so another tutorial. In this one we're going to just layer things together so that we can mix it and then put it into like a section of a song. That end part we probably won't do, but basically what people or producers like to do or recommend doing is that you layer all of your channels and all of your patterns in an 8-bar, 16-bar loop or something, just so you can put them together, make sure they work together, and then put it into the track and add the details and stuff after that. And I also want to kind of show you how to get like a rhythm going, which is something that I actually still work on. So hopefully we can do it. I don't really have any inspiration at the moment, so it's gonna be a little bit weird, but we'll just go with it basically. And if it turns to shit, then I'll just redo it. So basically, all I'm gonna do here, if you listen to the kick and claps and hi-hats that we have, it's just, this is the kick and here, hi-hat, and 2 separate claps, and that's something that people like to do. You could have overlapping claps and stuff like that, and that's fun. I recommend doing that. That's all it sounds like. All I'm gonna do is bring the out knob up a bit so that like the hi-hat just is a bit shorter, and I find that somehow that adds some rhythm and groove to it. Just because the clap there is quite short, so we don't want the hi-hat to drag too much. I have Silent One up. It says bass, but it's not even a bass yet, it's just a sawtooth. And we're going to use that. And sometimes when I make basses, especially when they're going to be a little bit more distorted and stuff, I like to have it like mostly a sawtooth waveform, and then sometimes I'll add like a sine or a triangle or a square or something on top of it. But basically what I do is I have, you know, the freaking sawtooth there, and I usually, and we're just going to use some random note right now because we're going to put it into the key of the kick here in a second. But if we just did something like literally just random, just so we know what we're doing here. What I like to do is I put the low pass filter on, and then I have like the cutoff knob coming up a bit, and then I have the 12 dB thing on here, and I don't always have it, but it just lets a few more like higher frequencies in, and I'll usually decide how much I actually want. Either way, it doesn't really matter. It depends on how like gritty I guess you want the bass to be, and then sometimes I'll add some drive after. So all you really do for this is you just add bit crush distortion on the Silent One. If you're doing this with another plugin, it'd be a little bit different, I think, but it's just, you're just adding distortion to a basic raw sound. That's generally like the concept of this. And it's kind of weird, but the way I do it, and this is how I read to try it, and I got some pretty cool sounds with, is just to literally like change the amount and dry wet until it sounds kind of cool. And I hold shift as I'm doing this so that I can get like exact numbers. The problem with making these sort of basses is that you can't really like, you can't do much with them in terms with like LFOs and stuff like that, because anything you do to it changes the sound once you distorted it this way. So if you wanted to make like a low pass filter effect or something going on with the bass, you'd have to do it externally through the mixer. So you'd have to like, you know, link it and then add like a fruity free filter or something like that to do something, because anything you do changes the sound. Like if I have that, if I change the drive, it'll change it. If I change the cutoff, it'll change it to a point where it doesn't really make much sense. That sort of thing. And then depending on what you want, you can like add something on top of it. And you just end up getting kind of cool sounds as you start layering more waveforms and changing some of the filters and whatnot. So basically there's a lot of phasing and stuff going on there, but you can get kind of cool sounds. I think the texture comes a lot from the distortion, but like the character of the sound comes from the bringing the note up by 7 semitones, and that's just the perfect fifth. So like the square, or the, what's that, triangle is hitting the D right now. You can also add like portamento and things like that. That can help depending on what kind of sound you want. All right. We gotta come up with the rhythm now, which is kind of the scary part because I have no idea what we're doing. So, honestly, like with a sound like this, I'd probably just sidechain it and add like just have like long notes and add, you know, kind of like a pattern of notes, like a melody. Some people would just sort of have a sound like on the offbeat first. That's probably in the wrong place actually. Another thing I forgot to mention was that if you really want to get technical, what you would do is you get the kick's key involved, which is a little bit, sometimes I think it's a little bit excessive. There are really practical ways of doing this. Sometimes I just like to pitch the kick up by 12 semitones, which is just like a octave, and then you can just get like a sine wave or whatever and just like ear it out. I find that the VEC3 kicks and all that stuff, like Vengeance kicks, I find they tend to be on G. The more it kind of phases and sounds distorted, the further you are from like, well, that's not necessarily true, but like you kind of know when you're hitting the right note just because it doesn't phase or distort at all. It kind of resonates. So that's how you would know. This one is a little bit hard to tell actually because it's a bit shorter. I think G would probably be the one here. So that's usually how I do it if I like want to know. But yeah, I'm pretty sure there's some plugins you can use for that, but I'm not exactly sure which ones it is. So anyway, it's on G. So if you really want to get technical, we could just put that on G so that when we use the sub bass, it won't interfere with the kick in any way. Well, that's not necessarily true, but it'll be less interfering in kind of a frequency notation sort of way. I don't exactly know what key we're actually in at the moment. I find when you have that sort of perfect fifth, two different notes for the bass that we have going on here, like the note +7 here, you kind of know what sort of sounds good, and it's easier to tell what, like, you know, it's easier to make a bass line from that. So that's sort of why I did it. Here, this note, we could actually make another bass for that. Sounds kind of cool like that. Basically, what I would do in this case is then I would clone the bass and then be sure to like link it on another track if you want it that way. Sometimes you can just copy paste the old sidechain that you did for the other bass, but it's good to mix that around. You don't always want to have the exact same sidechain. And why the hell not? We'll just throw the same EQ over it, but generally you wouldn't do this. So I'm gonna try to edit the most as I can out of this just so that we can kind of get through it. All right, so all I do is I sort of replace the sound there, and then you can just change it in whatever way you want. I kind of want to make it like skelchy or something, maybe. Thing is, it's gonna come in, right? So it's not just gonna sound like that. So let's see. Pwah. Thing is, that alone could be your rhythm if you want to have sort of like a bass thing going on. So let's see if we can put that together. So it sort of has to be the same, I don't know, like level, especially in terms of like the bass itself. Doing things like this, you should probably have a sub bass underneath it just to make sure that like that part is constant. Did I link this? This should be linked. This is not linked. Let's link that hi-hat. All right, so this has to be bright. I might actually get another EQ out. This is something I do a lot as well. I just use different EQs for the same sound just to get more bands and stuff. Okay, so another thing we can do is do another like kind of quick separate bass come in during the first part. So I want to kind of make it not be in the exact same like position. So I don't want it to be at the very end of the bar necessarily. Maybe have it somewhere else. Because then it's like, it's not like very original. So if we can maybe just have something like I don't even know, somewhere is here. And I'm just going to use this to fill it in for now. That actually works. So just, if you don't know where to put the like the fillers, I guess you could say, just kind of break up whatever note until you know, like it might sound better this way. So you just sort of experiment with that. The problem is here, it would have to end like this, and that's a really short note, so you'd probably just bring that over. And I guess that's sort of how you would use that. But I just kind of want it to slide through. So I'm going to put it right here. All right, so it's the exact same thing. You just sort of make another bass for it. And you'd probably spend a lot more time doing this as well, but I just sort of do it this way for the tutorial. And I wouldn't really change the notation. So if I had it down here, I don't know if that would really work, honestly. We'll make sure, but I don't think that would actually sound good. You want the general sound to be the same, but just it has to be different in some ways in terms of the character. But I'll keep the notes as the same. I guess you could use that, but I don't know. I'm just gonna keep it as 7 notes high, higher here on the second oscillator, just for the heck of it. But we'll see how it sounds without that. All right, so bring the kick in, just to know what it sounds like with the sidechain. I want this one to be pretty smooth actually, so we're not gonna do as much that decimate or whatever. That actually sounds really cool. Let's just see what that sounds like with everything else. I doubt it's gonna work, but we'll throw it in there. Thing is, in a real situation, this wouldn't just be bass, and that gave me an idea. I might actually just throw the chord section in this little bit here, because you want to kind of, if this is the intro, you kind of want to have to foreshadow what's going to happen in the rest of the track, if that makes sense. So 22 minutes I've been recording so far, so I might as well get this finished, even though we barely started. So how I make my sort of saws or whatever, really all you do is just, you would layer, I mean, you want to layer a certain amount of detuned saws of a certain amount of voices, but a lot of people use like 8 voices, 4 oscillators, so that's 32 voices, and I think that's sort of excessive a lot of the times. It depends how big and wide and everything you kind of want it to sound like, but generally I just have the first part set up for my my saw sort of sounds, and you don't have to have the decay that short or anything. I don't know why I did that. I always had the filter type the way I had it for the bass. So I have 12 decibels just so you bring in more of those higher frequencies. All right, so we're probably gonna have to add some reverb to this as well. All right, so the chord we're gonna use for this can be that. I'm just kind of referring off like F major, which is mostly the white notes or the white keys, except for B flat. I'm actually gonna bring the polyphony up because we can. I usually like to layer like plenty of notes on top of each other, like having wider or bigger chords. If we were to have something like that, I mean, you got to be careful what chords you use for your intro, because it kind of determines like what your track is kind of going to be like in terms of the feel. And you know, we'll probably add like that bus reverb or whatever, but I think we'll just have the reverb layering on top of it instead of sidechaining off of the sound. But we could do that here soon. I do like to use the Karma reverb, typically on the space type, and that's mostly where I get my reverb from. And then we'll have the kick here, and we'll just sort of sidechain the chords in the same way we're just doing it. You can sidechain over the reverb if you want. You don't actually have to. If you don't want it to be this way, you can actually just move it using your mouse wheel, move the plugins around, and it goes from top to bottom, right? So if the sidechain is in the middle, the reverb won't really be sidechained. So just in case you didn't know. It doesn't really work as well as for like, it worked better as a bass. So actually we'll keep that a bass, but then we'll bring this somewhere else. So we're just going to break up our pattern basically and add other instruments there where the bass was. In case you don't know, I'm using the ghost notes like crazy right now. I'm just watching where these are. You can double right click to get to the other notes, which is very useful, and you just go into helpers and then ghost channels, and that should do it, because I get that a lot. I mean, most of the time for this sort of thing, I usually just put it as like the first note, but the thing is, it's the wrong chord now, so and I don't think that's gonna work, and this thing's a little bit loud. And I think I'm going to add delay and stuff because it just ends a little bit too fast. So delay, and I'll probably just do the time like 4/8. Just add pan and ping pong, and then you're good. I like to have like stereo delay as well, so I have it the offset to like, usually I put it to the right and the pan to the left. I like this just because it kind of bounces with the bass. And here I just can feel that there needs to be something. I usually just go straight to the pluck because I make trance music. I have like this preset that I make for myself, which is just like the basic pluck essentially. It's just, you know, sawtooth with the modulation or whatever, and I sometimes add distortion and other things on top of it. And the vibrato. So, but really the pluck, like what makes the pluck is the way you use sort of the reverb and the delay. So again, same thing, just the EQ with the reverb, and I usually have the decay a lot higher here, but I don't drown it in reverb or anything like that. Well, sometimes I do, but this time I don't think I will, because I have the chords and everything that has quite a lot of reverb and delay as well, so I don't want that to mesh too much. And I think for the delay here, it's the same thing. Actually, I could reverse the stereo and panning, so have the pan to the right and stereo to the left. I don't usually do this, not that I think it really matters, but yeah, so I think I'm gonna bring the cutoff down. Bring the decay. Seriously, I could just mess around with these plucks all day. So All right. I think it's the effects like the reverb and the delay that really makes this sound interesting. And so I'm gonna let this other. I mean, we gotta fix this bass here. So I find I really cannot talk as I'm doing this. Like I'm in producer mode at the moment, like game face and everything. So I do have a hard time sort of like explaining what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Alright, so I'm just gonna experiment and see if that sounds any good. Actually, I'm not going to have anything here because I really want to accent that one bass. So I really am kind of looking at the other ghost notes in the background. Like I know that that is the sort of the yaw bass there. All right. The last note seems a little bit off key. So I'm gonna bring that down. And we could have another sort of chord thing go on somewheres, maybe have a different sort of chord sound. Maybe have like a triangle sound, and we'll make it sound really like ambient-y, and that just begs for a reverb, so we'll add reverb. I don't think this is gonna work at all, but we're gonna try it. And I'm actually gonna add some white noise at the end, just because we need some of that so it works. Sorry, that's really loud. So I just use a high pass and turn the white noise really low. Alright, add that side chain that we need. Not convinced at all this is going to work, but we're going to just go with it for now. And I want it to be sort of here in this like last section. Now if we took this, brought it down. Beautiful. Okay, let's put that there. Is that not working? I don't know if it's fitting the frequencies that we're letting in with the filter. It sounds just like a weird, like, square sound. I'm using my headphones here, and I know this is probably like resonating like crazy. So I'm sorry if it is. Okay. Great. Let's put it all together. At the end, you want to have some sort of transition or something. Toms or snares or something works good. So if we had a snare, not that, like those big ones, please, could use that, and then wait, I think VC2 has one that we can use. Alright, so we'll use that one. And this is the same thing, you know, it's all about the reverb, so let's use that. Alright, there you go. That's sort of it. I usually high cut or high pass the reverb so that it doesn't interfere too much with, like, you know, bass noise and stuff. And why did I do that with my snare? I don't know. Okay. Well, actually I do know, because it has to be all the way back here. In a playlist situation, you would actually have the clap come out so that you could have the snare there. Together it sounds alright, but For this bass, and this is gonna probably be the last thing I show you, I think I'm going to add some sort of stereo imaging so that it kind of spaces out from the other basses so you can really hear it. How you do this with the bass, if you have Ozone 5, you could make it so that you don't stereo image the sub part of the bass. Doing this makes it sound excessively wide, so you can put it on pre, do something like that, but then it kind of loses the wideness. This is like too much. I don't know what that does. My stereo imaging technique is completely just listening to it until it sounds like the way it probably should be, but doesn't always work out. And technically, I don't know if this will actually work in a real situation. Let's go with it. That was very anticlimactic. I'm pretty sure I said this was going to be in no particular style, so I think this does work for most genres, and that's kind of what I like about this, what I came up with. So I think hopefully you guys can use this and apply it to what you do, because it's just sort of like, I mean, I hope you guys kind of saw how I did this, because it's literally just taking the bass line essentially and breaking it up so that we can throw in other instruments in there, and that I just sort of made on the spot. You know, it's not much really, but yeah, there you go, there it is. I sound like my mom. All right, cool. So I think that's gonna be it. I'm gonna have to do some editing of this because apparently I've been running for 45 minutes, and after editing it's probably going to be like 40 minutes and a half, so hopefully I can do some actual editing here. And yeah, I'm just making sure I'm not forgetting anything, because that's the worst. When I forget, like, people will tell me that I forgot something. I know I didn't do much like drum pattern stuff, but I just think it all really like lies in the instruments, in terms of like there's so much going on with the instruments. I didn't want to add too much like hi-hat crazy stuff, but generally you could add like a closed hi-hat and pan it, or two closed hi-hats and pan it left right left right left right, and add toms and like that cool clap effect, and then you know, not to mention like a crash or something. That's something we don't have here. Typically you put a crash at the start. I remember getting a comment, yes, I read some of the comments, that I should make a tutorial on how to make a crash sound good. So if you're watching this far, mister, don't complain that I haven't done this, because I'm doing it right now. Kind of a weird suggestion, because the tutorial would have only last like 3 seconds as I show you how to make a crash sound good, but well, if we take that one, it might not be in time. I like that one, so it needs to be in time with what we're doing. So I think FL Studio should give us sort of like, we'll put 70 beats. I think I did this before with this crash, so let's see if this sounds. That's it. We wanted tempo. No, that's still not it. That's. Let's try putting just 4 bars in. Yeah, we're not using this crash. Screw it. We're not using this one. I can't be asked to like try to figure out like the time and stuff. I've done this before, but it's just kind of like, it doesn't tell you what time it is, the delay or whatever, so it's just gonna be off. Anyway, we'll just use this one. I like the crashes that I mean, the crashes I use, I like for them to be like longer in their tail, and I usually don't have it on the step sequencer like this. I usually just, I drag it straight to the playlist, and then I would like link that colored version. So I wouldn't have it like it is now, but because it's all on the step sequencer anyway, we'll just do it that way. Like I wouldn't just have like a crash pattern. I think that's ridiculous. Okay, so you would make it start on every kind of like 8 to 16 bars, you would have a crash on the on beat, the first on beat, and that usually signifies or shows like, oh, there's something going on. And then as you build the song, and like if you're having a build up, then you add like more crashes, so you could have a crash on every 4 beats, 2 beats, 1 beat, and then it's like building up that way. But here it's just gonna be on every, it should be within the 16 bars, so it shouldn't be repeating every 8. So just this is I said 16 bars, and 16 beats, isn't it? Yeah, I think it is. So yeah, don't make it so that it loops every 8 beats. That'd be really annoying. I'm making sure the guy gets it. So I usually just EQ the rough sort of, I don't like the sort of 4,000 hertz ish frequencies that much. I find they hurt sometimes. This one doesn't seem to have as much of like that sweet spot, but that will do. That'll be just fine. And that's usually how I clean up this sort of thing. And so you want to EQ it, turn it down, make it not loud. You can also do stereo imaging and stuff. There's this thing at the bottom. Oh, can you guys not even see that? I always have this way out here. This thing, this will stereo separate it. You can't hear the effect that much here, but you need to use this. It's the same as opening up the enhancer and using this big thing here. I guess there is a difference because that sounds completely different. Actually, yeah, fuck it, we'll use this. It just sort of widens it, if that makes sense. I'm taking all the time I need for this, guys, and you could add reverb if you want, and you just gotta make the tail long, and just don't overdo the reverb, please. Like that. Okay, and sometimes I add delay to my reverbs, okay? I'm doing everything you could possibly. I wouldn't really stereo image. I would just pan the reverb and then ping pong. And make sure the reverb, the delay is not loud. Just subtle. And then, yeah, just make sure it's not overpowering anything. It should just sort of be like any other hi-hat. That might be too quiet, so we'll kind of adjust it. See, right there should be fine.